Hello and welcome back to. Oh, hang on, I just forgot one thing. I have to go tell the missus to keep it down because we're recording. Hang on, I'll go back now.
Hopefully this won't be part of the show, but you never know with Clive. Clive is notorious for not editing out things you assume would be edited out. So don't tell him at some point that you have to go off and have a piss, because it'll definitely end up in the show, as me saying that probably is going to as well.
Hello and welcome back to Film Crack Crack, where we have a bit of crack about some films that have fallen through the cracks. And very excitingly, hello Nick, by the way, how's it going?
Hello Clive, not bad.
And we have a guest curator and guest today in the form of, introduce yourself, sir.
Gavin Whitaker of the Gav Crimson blog. That's who I am.
All right, Gav. So, yes, so we should mention, I mean, I'll let him speak for himself, but Gav here is a bit of a well-kept secret, in my opinion, because I'm a huge fan of the reviews that he writes. Well, you write for Letterboxd as well now, is that
yeah,
right?
Dumping ground for me stuff.
But there's also a treasure trove of Gav's reviews over at the IMDb, the Internet Movie Database, which, I mean, I know that sounds a little like damning with faint praise, but because there's just a septic tank of crap over there in the comments. But seriously, you really do need to check out Gav's reviews because they are well, I think they should really be collected and put into some book form or something at some point. And as you said, you also have a blog. We'll put links in the show post to all of this, and also the zine Bedabbled had some of your stuff in as well. Is that right, Gav?
Yeah, they put out a review of one of the films we talked about. Going to talk about today, Diversion. So, yeah.
Right. And is there any other? Did you do something for one of Daryl Buxton's books?
A few years ago, yeah, Dead or Alive, British horror films of the 1980s.
Oh, okay. I'm currently reading that actually. What did you write about in there? Do you remember?
I think I wrote endlessly about Don't Open Till Christmas, and I was on a bit of a Dick Randall kick at the time, so I think I wrote about the other film we're doing today, Urge to Kill. So,
yeah. Oh, I haven't got to where am I up to there? I'm up to what's that, 84? Don't Open Till Christmas?
Yeah, so it eventually crept out there. I think it began in about 1982.
Oh, there we go. I don't know what is listed in the book, but I don't think I'm quite up to that. Oh, good. I'm looking forward to that. Any other credits, any other writing credits or others that I'm missing?
Well, there's another book called Shrieking 60s that was about British horror films in 1960. So, yeah.
That's a Daryl Buxton one as well, is that right, Ed?
Yeah, that's another one of his, yeah.
Okay, do you remember what you covered in that one?
Lindsay Shanti film called Night After Night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, maybe a few others, I think.
So, as you may be able to tell, Gavin is a connoisseur of the very strange and ropey indeed.
Guilty as charged, yeah.
But this is great because Clive himself, as you may or may not know, has written at least one enormously thick guidebook to The Spine Grinder, a guide to all kinds of weird and wonderful cinema. And there is a second volume on the way, Clive.
Yeah,
through Head Press. So there we go. I think, Clive, maybe you can shepherd Gav's work. Yeah, I think you're right. It should be collected. I mean, IMDb is an interesting place because, as you said, a lot of what you find on there is not necessarily very useful. But then occasionally you stumble across specific reviewers who have a lot of knowledge and who write well, and it's always kind of exciting. And especially it can tend to be if you have a myopic interest in one particular actor or director, then you'll find, oh, here's somebody who really seems to get that person and gives you the information that you would hope would be on a place like IMDb. Clive, I have a question for you. Do you have an IMDb? Like, are you on IMDb as an actor?
Oh yes, apparently.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember what for, but yeah, but there's not much up there. It's not very interesting.
Okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
I am too, but it's very strange. I tried to avoid commenting on myself.
Actually, Gav might be one of the few people on the planet who've seen. Did you ever see a low-budget Canadian gore film called Meat Market?
No.
Good,
Oh.
good. I'm glad to hear that, Gav.
Well,
please continue to rigorously avoid seeing Meat Market 2000.
Nick wrote it and appears as Yuppie Scum, if I remember correctly.
Yes, yeah, it's not good.
No.
So we established off air that we're all more or less about the children of the late 70s, let's put it that way. And I'm guessing, and on all more or less from the same part of the world originally. So I'm guessing the trajectory is similar. But how did you get into what you're into, Gav?
Well, I sort of began with sort of horror films, watching the Hammer and Amicus stuff on late night British TV, and then you sort of find the more obscure stuff like horror films by Pete Walker and Norman J. Warren. I think you sort of become aware, like a lot of those people also dabbled in sort of sexploitation films, so you obviously sort of curiosity about what those films are like, sort of takes you on into deeper realms of British exploitation cinema.
Do you remember what was I mean, it's one of those things, you'll know it when you see it, right? So I know you'll know when I ask you this, even if some viewers might wonder, it's a very vague category, but do you remember what was the first of these sorts of films that you kind of stumbled across?
Probably the Derek Ford stuff is probably The Wife Swappers, a film called Sexplorer, and that's probably a good place to start with Derek Ford.
Yeah, the Sexplorer's quite a lot of fun.
Yeah. And the Wife Swappers is a masterpiece of unintentional hilarity. Yeah.
It's also
those two will really sort of hook you into this sort of thing, I think.
It's also quite grim in terms of it's like only the Brits would make a film like that about wife swapping, I think.
Yeah.
But here's a question. So, I mean, I left Ireland in 1989 and moved to Canada. And when I left Ireland, it was, it was still basically the tail end of what in England would have been the kind of the video nasties era, right? So certain things were very hard to come by. And then I got to Canada and things were a little more liberal here. Although I was still a teenager, so I wasn't necessarily having access to everything I wanted to see. But that element of kind of like, how do you come by? I mean, by the time I was 17, 18, 19, I was into that kind of gray market video trading and stuff, like getting these manila envelopes stacked with VHS grainy duplicates of things that I wanted to see. But in England, or in Wales for that matter, was it kind of the same in the early 90s? Like, if you wanted to see stuff that was odd, was there a legitimate place to go, or did you have to kind of go to the grey market?
Probably like sort of like film fairs. They used to like bootleg stuff of something weird video titles and
right.
Video Search of My Arm.
Yep. I have
Luminous Films and Video Works. Yeah, those sort of things. Yeah.
Another
you could see sort of like bootleg VHS stuff.
Another one I remember is if you ever went to any of the Eurotrash events that they put on, there'd always be like a bloke outside with a sports bag stuffed with tapes.
Oh yeah, kind of thing.
That kind of thing.
Like that.
Get your Cannibal Holocaust here.
Oh,
I remember actually they showed the one of the last Eurofests. They screened Cannibal Holocaust when it was still illegal in the UK, but they couldn't advertise it. So the flyer, it was like an anagram of Cannibal Holocaust was the main thing they were showing. I remember.
So just if you were in the know, if you were good at word scrambles.
But it is worth mentioning that, especially like these two titles we're going to talk today, fit kind of in that category of things that just didn't turn up. Like they were never on television, and post Nasty's scare, they wouldn't have been on video. They didn't really play repertory cinemas. They just, and you just didn't hear about them. You heard about, obviously your Hammer and your Amicuses and Tigons and all that, and fucking Carry On, which is I still can't get my head around. And then the Confessions or something like that.
Yeah,
play
Robin Asquith sort of stuff. Yeah.
But again, not even on terrestrial TV in those days so much. They turn up on like UK Gold or something like that. So if you didn't have satellite, you didn't see them either.
Yeah.
I mean, there was good stuff on telly in those days. I now looking back, and I mean, in 1995 when I was 16, that was like the 100-year anniversary of the birth of cinema. And if you remember this, Gav, there was like, they showed like the 100 best films of all time or something like that in the space of a year, and it was amazing. There was just like 100 proper bona fide like classics from around the world, like in one year. And you had stuff like Alex Cox doing Moviedrome and stuff like that. So TV wasn't a wasteland exactly, but it was more towards the high end, right? There wasn't that much in terms of sleaze and stuff like that on telly.
Yeah, I think sleaze came along maybe with like Channel 5 and remember Bravo?
Yes.
Stuff like that.
Those were the chinks in the armor, right? And through which our wasted past kind of seeped through eventually. I mean, now, if you have like now it's the norm to have some sort of cable service, right? So people have a lot of channels in general. Is it a bit easier now to find this kind of stuff?
I don't really know. No. And interestingly, there's a channel over here called Talking Pictures TV, and they're going to show the Confessions films over Christmas, but those haven't been on TV for probably decades, I don't think.
Very festive.
Yeah.
I'm surprised they never did do a seasonal one, like Confessions of a Department Store Santa or something like that.
Yeah, it's long overdue, a comeback. And I think Robin's still around, isn't he?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
We're waiting for the second volume of his
autobiography, yes, which is a surprisingly fun read, actually. Well, maybe not surprising, just a fun read. But it's funny, I have this really vivid memory actually now of probably about 1985 or 86, like the first video shop opening up in my tiny rural Irish town, and my next door neighbor's mum going out and renting films for like somebody's birthday party. And one of the things she rented was Q the Winged Serpent. Clearly with no idea, like, because this was an era where people just didn't know, and a film like that would never have shown in cinemas in Ireland. And she was utterly scandalized, Holy Catholic Irish mother. How could they have possibly rented this filth to her and her family?
I believe she was burnt at the stake, isn't that right, Nick?
Well, yes, we did. Yeah, we all gathered round, and threw the copies of Q on there as well. No, it's just there was this weird little window when nobody quite knew what these things even were in video shops, and then it was anyway.
I'm waiting until the conspiracy theory that giant flying lizards are molesting children, the Q the Winged Serpent anon
Oh, there we go.
If that's on the way,
Yes, yes. If not, we should start that website.
with David at its head. Right. So anyway,
mhm.
Nonsense aside.
Yeah.
Well, or just more different sorts of nonsense. So we're going to be talking. Well, tell us, Gav, what two films did you choose for us to chat about today, and why on earth did you do that?
Well, Diversions from 1975 and Urge to Kill from, 1989. So, two classics by one of the unsung heroes of British exploitation film, Derek Ford.
Right. And you were saying you got into Derek Ford via Wife Swappers.
Yeah, it's probably a good place to start. But Diversions is magnum opus.
Yeah, I have to admit, I wasn't overly familiar with Derek Ford. I mean, so just very, very brief kind of. So you from Essex, right? Born in 32, died in 95, I think.
Yeah.
And started off as a writer.
Yeah, began fairly respectably. And his brother sort of wrote for TV shows like The Saint, Adam Adamant Lives, Zcars, and then seemed to have got into exploitation for writing for a director called Robert Hartford Davis. He wrote The Yellow Teddy Bears, Saturday Night Hour, but most famously a film called Corruption, horror film starring Peter Cushing. So that seems how they got into exploitation.
Yeah, Corruption. Quite. That's a Robert Hartford Davis one as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
AKA Laser Killer, right?
Yeah, that's shot in a sort of more explicit version.
You're looking slightly blank-faced there, Nick. Have you not seen Corruption?
No, I
Okay,
have not.
you probably need to see Corruption because it's
Okay.
it's a Peter Cushing film with gore and nudity.
Oh,
And,
okay.
Yeah, it's actually quite good as well, I think. But much more outrageous than you'd expect a Peter Cushing film.
Okay.
Yeah, so yeah, his brother Donald. They also wrote for radio, I believe.
Yeah. So at the end of the 60s, I think Donald left the film business and became a magistrate.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So and then Derek got into directing, and his first big hit with the Light Swappers. So
wow, almost like a Cain and Abel thing. I wonder if he ever prosecuted his brother for anything.
Yeah, I think Donald's thing was juvenile delinquent. So.
Okay.
Read into it what you will.
The kind of runaways who might have ended up in his brother's films.
Yeah.
And some other interesting writing ones. He also wrote A Study in Terror, right? The Sherlock Holmes versus Jack the Ripper film, the original one.
Yeah, relatively respectable. He also wrote an early draft of what became Trog, film with Joan Crawford. But,
oh, is that right?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I think that sort of began as a sort of tag-on production. They wrote that, but then it's I think it got sold on and the script rewritten, so that they weren't credited on the release version of it.
Probably to his great relief, I would imagine.
Yeah.
He also wrote that film Venom, The House That Vanished, the Laraz movie. This one jumped out at me. The original, you were talking about original stories. The original stories for the Eddie Kidd film, Riding High.
Oh yeah. Oh god, yeah.
Which I've never seen, but
it's not very good, yeah.
No, but it's that kind of thing that how can you? It's like an Evel Knievel film, right? Like how can you not? I went on. There's a very bad copy of it on YouTube, but interestingly, I noticed there's someone's put up like they've done a 4K restoration of the trailer for it.
Yeah.
And whether that means there's a 4K restoration of the whole film on the way, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd imagine that one would be like a rights clearance nightmare. There's lots of very well-known music on the soundtrack by
right.
the Police and a lot of like new wave bands. Yeah, so I don't know if that'll ever get a proper release again.
And he also wrote, you mentioned Don't Open Till Christmas, right?
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah,
And
I like.
Sort of directed it, yeah. So
I like
directed it for a few days anyway.
And that's a classic to watch around this time of year, viewers.
I don't think I've seen that either. I have to say, I'll.
Oh, Don't Open Till Christmas is a good one. Something special.
Okay.
And then
It's something special, yeah.
And then as a director, some interesting. Well, actually, something I just watched for the first time earlier this week, and also asked our Wiccan friend Darren about in terms of its authenticity, is the kind of semi-documentary Secret Rights.
Yeah.
Which is, yeah, that's kind of, I was asking our mate Darren about it, and he was saying, actually, a lot of the Wiccan Coven stuff is actually fairly accurate, he was saying, surprisingly. But yeah, starring Alexander, forget his name now, but you like.
Sanders.
Yeah, there we go. One of the top witches of Europe, apparently. It's got the best bit. It's got this awesome opening scene where they recreate like a scene from To the Devil, or something like that. And then he turns to the camera and goes, "That's a load of bloody rubbish." Very dour individual is that Alexander.
Yeah, you did lots of those things though. Legend of the Witches, that's another witchcraft documentary. And, I think Witchcraft 70. Yeah, he pops up in a lot of those. Yeah.
It's I think that's a BFI double bill, isn't it? Legend of the Witches and Secret Rights.
Yeah, I believe so.
With commentary by the Flip Side guys, which is quite interesting actually. Yes, and like you said, the wife swappers, Stanley Long, and Sex Explorer, Groupie Girl.
Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah.
And then later on, I suppose there's other one that a lot of people seem to have seen, but don't necessarily attach him to, is Blood Tracks.
Yeah, he's even in that briefly as well. Yeah, as a sort of very small acting role. Yeah. Although I think his voice is dubbed though, sort of American accent.
Right.
Yeah.
And we'll get to transatlantic dubbing later on this episode, I think. Yeah, so Blood Tracks being like a Swedish Hills of Eyes rip-off thing. Quite boring if I remember from back in the day. But I think now I might be slightly more appreciative of its more subtle charms. I don't know if Blood Tracks holds up or not. Seen it recently?
Yeah. No, but I've seen it a couple of times over the years. I can never remember anything particularly about it all that much. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
Is there a mine involved? Maybe I seem to remember something about a mine.
Something like that, and a pop sort of hair metal band or something. That doesn't linger very much in the earth.
No, I'd like to give it another. You never know. We might do a follow-up Derek Ford special. We can all watch Blood Tracks again. What a treat!
Yeah.
Yes, and then before he died, he wrote a couple of mucky paperbacks as well. Is that right?
Yeah, I've got them both. Yeah.
I thought you might.
The casting couch, which is like a Hollywood Babylon type stuff about sex scandals in Hollywood, and Panic on Sunset, which is sort of a fictional thing that's also set in like Hollywood 1940s, very sort of Jackie Collins sort of stuff,
Any good?
Vaguely remember them being okay. He may have written actually, not going to get into this, but he may have written a few more books that were ghostwritten, not published under his own name. So.
Oh, okay. I mean, are they trashily enjoyable?
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah.
I might have to. I don't know if they're I don't know if they're valuable or you can pick them up for the price of a bag of chips. I don't know.
I imagine they're fairly cheap to pick up. Yeah, not much collectability. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So tell us a little bit about Diversions, Gav.
Well, this is his star vehicle for an actress called Heather Dealey, and she was like the muse for his more wildest fantasies, and it was like shot in like two different versions. There was a British release version that ran 50 minutes, and then there's the longer version that pretty much ever else got in the world, which is sort of I don't know, about an extra half an hour of hardcore, an additional sequence involving Nazis, and yeah, it's pretty wild one, yeah.
Yeah, the cut version being Sex Express, right?
Yeah, that was the British release version. That went around on the bottom half of a double bill with a film called Anita, starring Christina Lindbergh.
Ah, okay.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
that's interesting.
Always interested in some Christina Lindbergh.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen the Sex Express version by any chance?
No, it's never been released anywhere. No. Yeah.
Here's hoping someone like Vinegar Syndrome is working on a Blu-ray of Diversions and maybe can put the shorter cut on there, because I'm kind of I know the Nazi or Gestapo or whatever they are stuff is cut. Obviously the hardcore stuff's been cut out. Some of the detail of the cock dismemberment is missing, but still, even if you add all that up, 37 minutes is an awful big difference. Or there must be something else missing, surely. I don't think all that adds up.
Well, hang on. It is a porn film, so if you do cut all of the pornography out, you're not going to be left. I mean, there was several moments where I was watching, it was like, yeah, no, this is definitely proper. This is proper porn. There's lengthy scenes of,
Well, well, I'm guessing they must have kept a certain amount of slap and tickle in, obviously. So I still don't think if you added up all the proper hardcore penetration shots and everything, and I still don't think it adds up to 37 minutes. Something else must have gone, I reckon.
Yeah. Yeah. The mystery, yeah.
But
hopefully none of the soundtrack, because to me, for some reason, I was completely captivated by the series of, and I realized at a certain point, about 3/4 of the way through, when a piece of music that I'm intimately familiar with, because it's on the soundtrack to Dawn of the Dead, showed up, and it's obviously a library track. It's not one of the ones by Goblin, and I was like, oh, hang on, so maybe the score was partly just pulled from various sources, but the music is banging. It's top notch all the way through.
I think it's all choice cuts from the DeWolf library, as I know.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah.
Because because of my love for Euro crime, especially, I have a really a big soft spot for fluty, prog rocky, Enrique Luis Bacalov, Milan Caliber 9 kind of like that stuff. And a lot of the time, if I close my eyes, I might have thought I was just watching like Maurizio Merli driving in a Fiat around really angrily in Rome. It very much felt like the soundtrack. I mean, there is some overlap in that and porn music anyway, right? That funky kind of stuff. But I don't know. I loved this soundtrack. I would happily buy it.
It is a good soundtrack.
Yeah, it's also as memorable musically as it is for the sexual stuff. Really, he really captures the really funky, sleazy stuff that the DeWolf had to offer. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's kind of good because you're used to hearing the DeWolf library being utilized, but no, it genuinely seems as if someone with a good ear actually chose decent stuff, right? And not surprisingly as well, not a lot of the stuff that you hear again and again and again in other films. Like a lot of it was not familiar to me, and I wasn't sure for a while if it was DeWolf or not. But as far as I know, it is all DeWolf stuff, right? I don't know.
Mask of Death. I think the track that's from Dawn of the Dead is
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that was the only one that I recognized. The rest of it was all new to me, and it was all like many of my notes just paused to note how much I'm enjoying the song.
Yeah.
But what a banging tune!
Well, some of it is even as good as, I mean, I don't think it is them, because it's none. I don't think that any of this is on the compilations that have been put together. But the Pretty Things did a lot of stuff for the DeWolf Library, right?
Yeah. A lot of that ended up in Take an Easy Ride. Yeah.
Yeah, and but I don't think it's any of the stuff here. But just to give an indication of quite how good it is, you wouldn't be surprised to hear if it was the Pretty Things or some of the session musicians that you knew of who were. I don't know. I'm not overly. I've got some Has anyone ever put out some kind of book or a blog or something which is, like, let's identify all the Wolf Library tracks and which films they're in? Has anyone ever attempted that mammoth task?
Years ago, I think I saw a blog that had like a list of all the Wolf tracks that were on the Diversion soundtrack, but I can't find it to say the last of me these days. Yeah, but
yeah, no, I had a look about, and I thought there'd be some maniac out there, like obsessively compiling that, but I couldn't find anything. But it's a job for someone, and not for me, but someone maybe with time on their hands.
Dixie Lady is another track that's on the Diversion soundtrack. Yeah.
Yes. So as you said, Heather. Well, so we should also mention straight out the gate that this has quite a good twist ending.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Didn't see coming, and is quite deftly handled, to be fair. It's quite well done. So I think we're actually gonna avoid saying what it is.
Spoilers, okay?
Because I think it's worth finding out for yourself. It's it is actually quite well done.
And it's a bit of a Canterbury Tales too. We get a nice framing narrative, basically, right, to string together these various scenes of fantasy, right? We do have this kind of the train ride, which I guess what's obviously where the English title, the Express title, comes from, right? The fact that it is, the whole thing takes place on a train, while one of our protagonists has this series of daydreams or fantasies.
It's
which
like
is good.
Dr. Terror's House of Erotica, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, in some ways, it's good. I quite like the twist ending because it takes some of the gah out of some of the earlier scenes when you're thinking that they're actually flashbacks or memories that this character is having. Because there's a couple of rough ones near the beginning where you're like, ooh. But then at the end, you're like, okay, well, it's a person letting their fantasies run free. So that's all fine, I guess.
Yeah, so the setup is a female convict being transported to prison by a couple of coppers, I guess, for GBH, right? That's what her charge is, apparently. And Heather Dealey stars, and she's there on the train, and just kind of we hear her in a monologue, and she looks around the carriage, and various characters just trigger their either daydreams or flashbacks or memories. We're not really sure, right? And and that kind of, so yeah, we have this kind of anthology sort of setup. So the first one is maybe the least interesting in some ways, I think.
Oh, I don't know about that. That soliloquy about apples was when my interest sparked up. I was like, oh, what? The dialogue. I mean, again, like I'm not going to claim to be unfamiliar with the type of film this is. I'm an open-minded fellow. I have experienced a fair amount of this stuff, so I'm always excited when I see a film that is like this, particularly that's hardcore, where they're making an effort, where actors are attempting to act and deliver lengthy pieces of dialogue, right? I mean, by the time you get to the 80s, right, that's kind of gone. As soon as the move to video, you just stop seeing people giving a shit and trying to make a movie. This still feels like that weird era of like, no, we're making a movie. It's just going to have a lot of people humping, and you're going to be able to see all the bits. So yeah, that whole opening segment where in fact, the opening, like what triggers the memory is him like with the best come on line of all time, which is like, you know, would you like an apple?
Yeah.
Like, it's just
straight in the lens as well.
yeah, like,
yeah, and you know,
and then
not offering anyone else in the carriage an apple. He's pretty, you know, he's pretty obvious what he's after.
He's a cheeky chappy for sure. And then yeah, and then we flash back, and you know, he reminds her of this younger lover she had, or whatever, or it's just entirely a fantasy or a daydream. But yeah, his lengthy monologue about, you know, did you know an apple has buttocks and all that stuff? I was just enraptured. That might have been my favorite segment of the entire film. Just him going on and on about the apples.
There you go, ladies. If you're ever in the Prince Edward Island area and want to seduce Nick,
yeah,
just give him some apple talk. And make a makeshift sex doll out of apples on the bar.
Yes, that was fantastic as well.
But what I mean is, it's good fun and all that, but just in comparison with the later things, it just seems a little twee.
It's tame. It's a bit tame for sure.
It's also the only segment I think where it's hardcore inserts not involved.
Yes.
That's a strange thing. I was going to mention that. Yeah.
Which is
first, it's all inserts. Yeah. The rest is all, you know, performed for real by the actual actors. Yeah.
Because I noted it in my immediately, I was like, "Oh, these are obvious, very obvious hardcore inserts." So I was thinking, well, I guess that's what the movie is going to be. It's going to be one of these films that was originally shot softcore, and then Bob Guccione went off and filmed a bunch of crap with everybody's heads cut off and stuck it in there. And then, but no, very quickly we realized when we see the second segment, no, these are the actors, and they are very much.
That is odd. I don't know whether it began as a softcore film, and then by the time they started shooting the other segments, they thought, you know, do it for real, or maybe the hardcore footage of that sequence didn't come out right, so they had to go back on insert that. I don't know.
I mean, it's a good point to maybe pause and talk about that then. So there were other Ford movies that had these harder kind of export versions, right? And you'll correct me if I'm wrong here, Gav, but to begin with, for instance, stuff like Groupie Girl and Wife Swappers, maybe the kind of export continental versions, they were prepared by the distributors who released them, right? As opposed to Derek Ford himself to begin with.
Supposedly the first film where he shot hardcore he brings himself is Jimmy's the Husband.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, prior to that, apparently Groupie Girl was put out in a sort of hardcore insert version where the French distributor sort of added stuff into it.
That's the Pimps of Perversion cut, right?
So apparently, yeah.
But I don't know if that stuff's extant or if it's lost to time. I'm not sure.
I don't believe so. No, I don't.
Because the other one I think he did prepare himself, right? As far as I know, is the hardcore version of Sexplorer, right? Is that about? I've never seen the hardcore Sexplorer.
No, I don't think. I think someone found the hardcore version of a film called Keep It Up, Jack.
Oh,
that's a fun film. Yeah, they're called Dark Force. They put it out on Blu-ray. I think that's the hardcore version with stuff shot by Ford himself. Yeah.
Oh, that was done by Ford himself for that one.
Yeah, apparently I haven't seen it, but yeah, there's a few extra minutes of hardcore in that.
Yeah, because Ford and his wife, the producer here, Valerie M. Ford, I mean, they were notorious swingers on the Essex scene, right?
Apparently, Malvern, Essex, yeah.
Yeah.
This is a Blackwater film production, and Blackwater is an estuary that runs through Malvern. Yeah.
Right. Also, the production company name on The House That Vanished as well, I think.
Yeah.
Oddly enough. I wonder if Laraz ever visited them for some swinging evenings in Essex.
Who
But
knows?
so yeah, so things get more interesting with the second kind of.
Well, if you're not into apples.
Yes, yeah. If you don't have,
Which I am. In fact, I'm looking at my notes here and it just says, "Holy shit, best porn ever made." He's making a girl out of apples? Question mark.
okay. So we'll
anyway,
overlook
sorry.
Nick's fruit fetish. You can't see on the YouTube video, but he is actually sat on a banana right now as he speaks to us.
Yes, I'm fondling an apple just off to the side here.
But yeah, so into the second extended sequence, which starts as a sort of there's some kind of war or conflict going on somewhere. Heather Dealey seems to be like a field nurse or something, right?
Yeah.
And then she's attacked by the enemy who gun down a couple of wounded men in slow motion. And then she's gang raped on the bonnet of a Jeep.
Yep, that all seemed quite harsh. I mean, in fact, actually, this is a great film for tonal whiplash. We give our poor friends in Hong Kong a hard time, but I'm starting to wonder if maybe it was all those years of British influence, because this film just goes from like, yeah, pleasant hijinks, apple-based sex comedy to wham, we are in a war zone and dealing with some very grim action.
Yeah, we've gone from Nick's favorite scene to my favorite scene.
There we go.
So yes, and as we mentioned, Dealey is very much involved in the action now. There's no, it's all filmed. You can tell from the get-go. There's no inserts here. No. As we move into, I don't know. I suppose it's her. It's the same character who was raped in a war zone. I don't know. Is now luring men back to her.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if there was this was an I spit on your grave kind of well, obviously before, proto I spit on your grave thing where she's luring her violators back to murder them, or if this wasn't actually connected. It was a bit loosely thrown together, this whole part.
It's good though. I like this part. Yes, and she fucks some guys and then somehow manages to kill them with a very flimsy looking letter opener.
Letter opener, yes. Yes.
And cuts off a cock as well with it.
This is when the movie got just utterly bonkers, where I was like, what? Because not only is this, I mean, we haven't even talked about this, but like, how many hardcore films were made in England in the mid 1970s? I can't imagine. Not many. And for this one to be so out there, is just that way it is a revelation. I was like, how did this get made?
Interestingly, this came out the same year as Gav Smith wrote The Sucking Pit, which has a very similar scene where a woman picks up a guy for sex and ends up separating his penis from the rest of him. So maybe there's something in the air. Maybe 1975 was a peaceful year for male castration anxiety.
I'd be very worried if there's anything Gav Smith in the air. What was the one we read that was kind of the follow-up to that? The Festering.
The Festering, yeah.
Yes, which is in some ways a kind of a return to the Sucking Pit.
But the Sucking Pit's a good one as well. I like the Sucking Pit. It's one of the, because Gav Smith stuff falls into two categories, right? There's like the very readable, and then there's just the slog ones, right? But both of those are good ones. And who knows? I mean, they might have, bumped into each other in some club in Soho, and Derek Ford invites, what's your name? Guy. What do you do? All right, books. Oh, hey, do you want to come back? And Steve's given a private screening of the full version of Diversions, and then the next day the Sucking Pit was written.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Yeah, the only thing that could really improve this film might be the appearance of giant crabs. going clickety click.
Fantasies.
Well, this is the thing. See, I mean, that's you think about all these things you could do, and that's when you realize how much of a bit of a letdown that Last Night in Soho film was. You could have proper CD kind of version of that.
This is film Last Night in Soho could have been.
Yeah.
I love that. My notes are so strange. Cut to people humping in a well-appointed room on nicely upholstered leather settee. Perhaps paying attention to the wrong things.
We can only hope to whatever god you worship that Anya Taylor-Joy goes the Heather Dealey route. Unlikely though. I think she's doing all right for herself.
Yeah.
And so yeah, she kills one guy and fiddles with his cock, and then she heads off to the city, Piccadilly Circus, picks up a bloke in a cape.
Well, hang on, are we skipping? There's a part where somebody else, I don't think it's her, in the rubber leather suit drives a golf cart to some undisclosed location and dumps a body in a
Oh
pit.
yes, I had forgotten about that. Yeah, who is that then? Is that her
partner in crime?
I don't
know. Yeah, mysterious little moment.
I had totally forgotten about the PVC woman. Yeah, that that could be a whole film in itself, right?
Well, there are almost like giallo-esque elements to this. You can see in certain points that kind of Italian sleazery kind of, the rougher end of the giallo. Or maybe that's just the music.
Yeah, no, one of those giallos shot in London. Yes, so they pick up another bloke, but he turns out to be a vampire.
Yes. Well, he's wearing a cape. That's often a giveaway.
Yeah.
He could have been a mesmerist or something like that.
Yes, true. Does he have a violin with him as well? I couldn't quite figure out what was going on when she first picked him up.
Of course, all this is triggered off by someone showing an issue of, was it Vampirella?
Oh, yes. Right, yes. He's reading it.
Timothy Blackstone, right? Who was the first guy who was killed as well, right? He's reading Vampirella on the train.
Who appears in Genesis of the Daleks in probably around the same time. Now I'm thinking about it.
He had a few legitimate acting credits, but mainly did part, like Blue movies and stuff like that for John Lindsay.
I can only imagine that Tom Baker would have also wanted to be invited to these.
Yes, tell me more.
Hello.
I've had it with these fucking pepper pots. I want some sleaze.
If you haven't read his autobiography, or in fact, more importantly, if you haven't, just download the audiobook of him reading his autobiography, Who on Earth is Tom Baker? It's one of the best things I've ever heard.
But yes. You mentioned earlier how much porn was actually being made, and you said that Gav, in terms of Timothy Blackstone being in some shorts or loops, and I suppose that's where it was. Right? Any hardcore production in the UK at this time would have been in the shape of loops more than
Yeah.
I don't know. Oh, go on.
A few years ago, someone I knew actually got his phone number, Timothy Blackstone's phone number. I don't know how, and cold called him and sort of asked him about his porn career, and he went absolutely spared. He's like,
really?
Denying everything and just slamming the phone down. So, wow. It's not something you like to be reminded of, apparently.
Well, if you're watching, Tim, sorry.
But great job as Thal number 2 in Genesis of the Daleks.
Well, what I was wondering is, so obviously, if you're over in New York, for example, these things would have ended up in bookstore, loop machines and Times Square and places like that. But where would was there any? I mean, for a short window of time, I would imagine before the authorities cracked down, would there have been anywhere where you would have actually been able to put coins into a loop machine in the UK at any point?
About that. But from what I've heard is like the vampire and the Nazi sequences in Diversions later got sort of re-released as sort of loops, and they were put into like peek booths.
Right.
Yeah.
I think re-released is a charitable way of putting it, Gav. I think they were just nicked out and cut out the print. And...
excised.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is interesting because I can remember. So my one of my good mates, his dad ran a secondhand bookshop for many years, and they would get kind of estate sales. Somebody would pass away, and they get these incredible collections of stuff. And I do remember him having tons of these amazing tins of Super 8 loops, that were sold directly to, discerning consumers through the back of magazines and stuff. So, you may not have been able to necessarily pay to see these things publicly, but there was an underground, or there were ways to get these things. If you had a projector at home, you could certainly.
That's not any doubt. I mean, that was the market. Would have been people putting on stag parties and things. Probably Derek Ford and his missus, I would have thought, probably had a loop collection. But no, what I mean is, I was just wondering if, because sometimes there's this window of time before. I'm wondering if there might have been, a few shops in Soho, or maybe some end of the pier places somewhere that they, had a loop machine for a few months before someone tipped off the local constabulary, and they came in and shut it down. It'd be interesting if anyone knows. If let us know. I'd like to hear your tales, because that's always the weird things. I like just because I know some of them had cubicles, but some, imagine some guy in Brighton in the arcade just standing up, just whacking off like in front of everyone next to the UFO catcher machine. How the logistics of it worked. Anyway, that's another fantasy for another time. Right, so the third segment, well, this is a bit more in keeping with those saucy 70s sex comedies, right?
Yes, this almost could have fit in an Asquith type of, except that the guy's American, strangely enough. But yes,
Dealey looking fantastic in this sequence as well. For me, the whole film, this is the bit where she really kind of shines. Like I see the appeal that she had, and she's just moved into a flat which was previously occupied by one Miss Whiplash, and they haven't changed the phone number, so she gets getting people calling up asking for personal services. A bloke who seems to be American, or a bloke doing an American accent, turns up, and then and it has a bit of a wah 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 kind of ending, but it's actually quite amusing. It made me kind of laugh. Not much to say about this segment, really.
Not after what just came right before.
It's a bit of a palate cleanser, I suppose, isn't it?
Right.
A sort of respite from the nastiness.
Yeah.
Give him a breather, some normal sex for a while.
Not for long though, because
yes.
Because the conductor, as played by stuntman Terry Walsh, triggers, I suppose, the most notorious. We're assuming they're Nazis or Gestapo or something, but interestingly, I noticed in the IMDb listing, when they mention one of the actors involved in this scene, they credit them as African. So I'm wondering, is this supposed to be happening in some? Because in the background, there's some poster which is difficult to see as well, which looks. Is this happening? Is this supposed to be like, some apartheid state or something? It's very.
I thought that was a sort of an anti-communist, an anti-Russian kind of an anti-Bolshevik looking poster thing that was in the background. But who knows? But it's authoritarian fascist types, I guess. whether they're Nazis or East German, yeah, but scary guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't totally commit to them being Nazis, although that tends to get written off as a Nazi exploitation sequence. Yeah.
Right.
But you're right. You don't actually see. I mean, like, well, probably to the good, but there's no obvious display of swastikas or anything like that. So yeah, I guess it's open to some interpretation.
Right. Which is why it would have worked quite well as a fetish loop as well, because it's not too specific to turn anyone off. It's just, if you're into sadomasochism, here you go, kind of thing.
This is the part where I noted that she looks a bit like Daphne from Frasier from certain angles. I can't remember what her name is, Jane something. She was on Benny Hill, and then she went off to America, and anyway, yeah. No, I agree with you, Clive, that she's a cutie, and she grows on you as the film goes on.
Yes,
definitely.
Alas, the print that we watched, the print me and Nick watched, I'm not sure about Gav, he let us know, this is missing the golden shower scene. Is that in your version, Gav?
There's a German video release that has that sequence in, yeah, but that's cut out of the
Of course it does, because it's the German release.
Yes,
yeah.
I believe the German release of Home Alone 2 has a golden shower.
yes. The Sound of Music, the German release. Yeah.
But interestingly, the German video release also cuts out the whole castration sequence and the gory stuff there.
Oh, okay.
You left the golden shower in.
Yeah, it's a faked golden shower though, right? From what I've read.
Yeah, it's shot in a way that could be fake. Yeah, it's just that.
That's a bit of a shame. But yes, I would like to see this scene one day. I did look about. I couldn't find it. I might have to order the German. Is it dubbed in German? The German?
Yeah.
Oh, that's only going to make it better than I would imagine. Or more terrifying, anyway.
But other than that, yeah, she's made to fillet the gun, and then there's a bit of tying up and torture. I mean, it's not overly, extreme by the standards of what you can.
Of 2 scenes ago, funnily enough, in the same film.
Of what you could see
it's
nowadays.
Relatively sedate compared to what happened in that well-appointed room with the letter opener.
And
yeah, I was a bit surprised. I was worried that given how outrageous that early scene was, that was like, oh God, where are we going here? But it didn't. Thankfully, it didn't turn into Salo or anything like that.
This scene is very, very much evident on the Japanese promotional materials for Diversions. Like this is.
Yeah, also unsurprising.
Yeah,
and on the German video release as well. Yeah.
On the Japanese poster or whatever it is, I think it kind of tries to make it look like a more extreme version of the female prisoner scorpion series, right? Even down to the font of the title on the poster, and but it's
this is pre Diane Thorne and Canada, one of Canada's great films, the Ilsa.
About same year, right? 70...
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe something else was in the air.
Oh, well, I suppose you could say Diversions, but it's probably 75, really, isn't it? And then came out to 76. Yeah, so about around the same time. But again, if you're thinking wider context, you would have had similarly themed loops and stuff like that.
But when is there stuff like Lena Wertmuller makes
Night Porter?
Yeah. Well, so the Night Porter, and then her one was something, I can't remember what it was called, but yeah, there was a series of these kind of Italian.
Yeah, well, that's earlier again, 74, right? And,
right, but it's in that same window of
Everyone was just mad in the 70s.
I think so,
from what I can gather. It's a shame. We just missed out, lads. It would have been. It's very much our era.
Yeah, because I came out in 1975 as well, but I remember very little of it.
Right. And it the scene turns into a three-way. There's a pretty good cum shot at the end. very copious. I noted that. Yeah, and then we're into, well, then we were talking Dr. Terror's House of Horrors earlier, and this is where it goes a bit, well, more Dr. What was it? What was the Steve Coogan thing called? House of Horrible? It's it's more like that, really, isn't it? Yeah, with Heather Dealey as a woman who goes to a Victoriana bric-a-brac shop and brings home an old camera. And immediately, as soon as this sequence started, I thought, well, Nick's enjoying this. Because you have a thing for Victorian mutton chop gentlemen.
Oh yes, the mustache. I did make a note of that in my notes. Yeah, I was pretty happy to see the.
This is what's his Anthony Kenyon, right? Yeah. So yeah, this camera seems to, well, be haunted, and then I wasn't sure if it, as I assume it must be something to do with why this old Victorian gentleman suddenly turns up and starts taking nudie pictures and gets in a three-way with her and a maid. This is all very silly, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Almost like a sort of homage to like very early sort of stag films, sort of.
Yeah, very much so, actually. And totally, out of step with what came just before.
As I said, this thing, tonal whiplash is the name of the game. It's right. You never know where you stand from one scene to the next.
And then when it kind of ends in a bit of a, it was all a dream, or was, I thought that might be the ending of the film, that the whole thing, even the, the train might be, but no, we do come back to that, like we said, in quite a nice, I mean, I don't know what you fellows feel, but I thought that surprise reveal was actually pretty well done, and I didn't see it coming.
Yeah. It's interesting thing about the shop, the antique shop. Years ago, someone who did sort of a bit of acting for Derek Ford, hardcore stuff, told me that he actually owned an antique shop, and that was kind of a bit of a front for his pornographic film involvement. So I don't know whether that's his actual antique shop in the film, but if he did own one at the time, it makes sense to film it there rather than just go on location to someone else's antique shop. So that might be his own antique shop. I don't know.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And so we should talk a little bit about, so Heather Dealey as well. I mean, now you go up and you look on IMDb and there's a handful of credits, including this, pretty much all kind of the same year as well. So it would be easy to kind of misjudge her stardom. But I think in the mid-70s, if you were buying, men's magazines and things, I mean, Heather Dealey was a pretty big deal, right?
Which was in like 5 films in 1975 alone. I mean, they sort of range from like a lead role in this to sometimes like very small roles and that. And then there was a 6th film actually that was never completed called Pink Orgasm. Although years later, footage from that turned up on a VHS compilation of erotic clips called Who Bears Sins.
Huh. Yeah, so it's interesting. As far as I know, no one's dug it. She didn't do any loops.
No, I don't think so. It's all like feature film. Yeah.
It's a shame, really, because I'm sure there's quite a few people who'd like to see more of. I mean, you see everything here, but would like to see even more of Miss Dealey. Yeah, she does have a certain quality, like you said, it kind of grows on you over the course of the film.
No, she's a cutie, and it's funny. I went through a period of being fairly obsessed with Constance Money for a while in my early 20s, who did the opening of Missy Beethoven, and she was another one who kind of had a very brief window where she did some very high profile stuff, and then mostly loops in that case, where and it was always exciting to find that. Like I remember a friend of mine found one of them, and he actually went to the trouble of transferring it himself because it wasn't something that was available at the time. But yeah, she has the same sort of vibe to me of 70s cutie. Although, yeah, the movie, as I said, the movie itself, wow, what a mind fuck that film is.
It is quite fun, I have to admit. I enjoyed it quite a bit, and it's definitely a bit of an outlier in terms of hardcore film production out of the UK, right? Like you said, Nick, I can't really think of anything comparable, and the fact that it goes as far as it does, which
there's not even that much out of the US, to be honest, that are quite as far out there as this is, particularly in that second segment, where I'm like,
it seems to be a common story in UK exploitation where straight out the gate, like, whoa, go a little bit too far, and then all of a sudden we retrench way too far back, right? And it's but it's definitely also with Jackie Rigby, we should mention, and Derek Martin, who was later on EastEnders for years and years and years and years and years.
In his autobiography, Derek Martin, he claims that Adventures of a Plumber's Mate was his only X-certificate film. But people who know about these films know differently. He's in quite a few of them.
I didn't know that Derek Martin had written an autobiography.
Yeah, but he's in a few of that. I think an early Pete Walker film as well. So he's in a few.
Yeah, he was in a few things in the 60s and 70s, it seems, but nothing quite like. But like I said, there wasn't much quite like this to be in anyway. Even if you were game. Anything else to say about Diversions, either of you?
It's filthy.
Yeah, no, it's good. Like I said.
Right. A journey to the dark side of British sex cinema.
Yeah, for sure. It's funny. I don't remember. So what was the documentary that you recommended to me, Clive, a little while ago before we did the Robin Asquith book? That was
Doing Rude Things.
Doing Rude Things. Yeah. I don't remember this coming up. I could be wrong, but I feel like they didn't touch that with a 10-foot barge pole when they talked about the British sex film.
Yeah, well, I have the revised edition. It's a book I haven't actually read yet. I only bought it until quite recently. I don't know if it's in the revised edition at all, but a mate of yours, right, Gav, David McGillivray, he gave you a very good blurb anyway for your blog.
Yeah.
Okay, we won't go there. Right, so we jump forward, well, officially 13 or 14 years, but I suspect that this very 80s looking monstrosity might have been shot a few years.
Yeah, if this is 1989, youch.
Yeah, but if you live in a kind of weird Essex swingers bubble, it could be up until 1999, I think. But so anyway, what's the second treat you've picked out for us here, Gav?
The Urge to Kill, originally shot as Attack of the Killer Computer, and also known as The Computer Strikes Back.
Oh, really? That makes it sound like
nice.
Disney.
Bit of Star Wars in there. Wow.
Don't pollute the space, Nick.
Oh, sorry.
I think Dick Randall also had a film called The Ninja Strikes Back. So.
He did put out The Ninja Strikes Back, I think. I can't remember. Was that a Bruce Lee film or? Yeah. Because he did
also starring Dick Randall's wife under the name Chick Norris.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can't remember if I must have seen the Ninja, because Dick Randall did a few things with Bruce Lee, Challenger the Tiger as well, and of course Bruce Lee turned up in Pieces weird.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yes.
Every conceivable form of exploitation film, Dick Randall had a go at.
Yeah, yeah.
Pieces is one of my favorite films ever made. That's a film I return to almost every year, and it never fails to entertain me as much as the first time I watched it.
But amazingly, not on the recently released 2022 Sight and Sound Best Films of All Time list. I couldn't believe it.
Yep.
Wrong.
Neither is Urge to Kill as well, which. Yeah, no. So this is from producer Dick Randall's Spectacular Films, which also put out Living Doll, right?
Yeah, there's a correction there. The person who alerted me to this film is a guy called Paul Hart Wilden, and he wrote Living Doll for Dick Randall. And,
okay.
On the sort of basis of that, I got a job as the assistant director on Attack of the Killer Computer, later become known as The Urge to Kill. So I managed to get a few bits of information about it off him. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, interesting. Hopefully,
So it's mostly shot in a week, I think. Mostly at Dick Randall's house, and with a day's location filming at the house of Peter Gardino, and another day's filming at recording studio. Must be the opening scene.
Yeah. Was it shot in the UK?
Yes. Although it may. Well, the strange thing is about Dick Randall, like he and his wife would spend like 6 months of the year living in London, and 6 months of the year living in Hong Kong, what I understand. And a few years ago, someone who wrote a well-known book about British horror films claimed he'd seen like the paperwork for all of that Dick Randall productions, and they were apparently all registered as Hong Kong productions, even though they nothing remotely Chinese about these films, other than maybe the Chinese takeaways Dick Randall was ordering from the sets.
So there's also, is there a Canadian component to this film?
Sure.
Because somewhere, I can't remember, somewhere I looked it up. I don't know if it was the IMDb or if it was Letterboxd or some review I had it as an UK Canada production. But I don't know where that comes from. If that's just an error, it just seems like a very specific.
I think it got leaked in Canada. The leak of the film in Canada, so I don't know.
Is that where his widow Valerie was living at the time?
I don't know. I think Valerie might be in America.
Because isn't that the rumor? That's the story that someone pinched it from the work print, a video of the work print from her, and then it ended.
Well, I don't know, but I was looking. It sort of surfaced on a website called Driving Classics DVD. And I managed to find like a few old saves of this website on a Wayback Machine. Now, it seems to be like taking orders for DVDs in Canadian dollars. So I assume that this website was based in Canada, or at least was pretending to be based in Canada. So.
Driving
Classics DVD. Yeah, it's still there's a few saves of it on Wayback Machine.
Right, hang on. You two chat because I have something here. I have a Drive-In Classics DVD set. I'm just wondering if it's the. No, hang on. It's not Drive-In Movie Classics, is it?
No. I think it was only around for about a year, but they were all like strictly, rare films on DVD-R. So okay. Bootleg organization.
No, I was just gonna. Yeah, no, I have one of those 50 movie packs called the Drive. I was wondering, is there a kill on there? Surely not. But so yes, and also 2014 saw a sort of legit French DVD release, right?
Yeah. Took 25 years to get released.
Do we know how much better the print of the DVD is versus this kind of work print that
I don't know. I've never seen it, but the screenshots look, a lot better. Now, apparently, they had the rights owner owns like a 35mm print of it, so yeah, it should look good.
Okay. And the other major difference from what we understand is the sunbed death, which we'll mention, is more graphic, right?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think the screener copy that's out there, I think they were thinking they'd probably be BBSC problems with it, so they cut the exploding breast sequence from the screener. Yeah. So.
Right, which leaves you kind of a bit confused as to exactly what's happened.
Yeah. But there's a few shots of that in the trailer. Yeah. So.
Oh, okay. I couldn't find the trailer online though. I don't know if it's about, but
yeah. Apparently, the leak when it was being sold the DVD, I got a copy of that. The trailer's on there before the film. Yeah. So.
Oh, okay. Right. So, yes. So this.
So Bono Zorro then.
Bono Zorro. Yes. Brilliant.
What a name.
I think Harold Pinter had a hand in the screenplay. And
yes, Bono Zorro and his head full of Jerry curl. Another reason why this seems a bit earlier than 89, but I guess Jerry curl is probably still around.
There's something a bit Alvin Stardust about him as well. So yes, this is as played by Peter Giordino, who was primarily a dancer and a choreographer. Right?
Yeah, mainly a sort of bit of a singing career, sort of like a middle of the road, sort of Des O'Connor, Jack Jones type, singer. Yeah.
Apologies to any Des O'Connor fans watching. But also on UFO, right? The Jerry Anderson show.
Fairly infrequent actor, though. I think he's mainly a dancer. He's appeared in a very early British exploitation film called Secrets of a Windmill Girl, which he basically plays himself. A dance choreographer called Peter. So wasn't much of a stretch.
Where is he from? Is he British?
No, was he born in India? Maybe I'm not sure.
Oh, okay. It's just because the other thing we should mention is the post-dubbed, all the dialogue is heavily transatlantic or American accented, isn't it? So
yeah,
it's very difficult to tell who, if anyone's using their own voice and
where it's even supposed to be. So I guess it's supposed to be the US.
Well, I think that's obviously deliberate, right?
He's from Burma, Rangoon, Burma.
Yeah. But okay. I think Peter Gordino is using his own voice, but everyone else is dubbed.
Oh, is it Gordino? Is it Haji?
Yeah, Gordino.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so after a bit of extremely 80s opening music, which is so it's so of a type. It's that kind of thing. You'll swear as soon as it starts, you're like, oh, it's this. And,
yes.
And then you realize, oh, actually, I have never heard this song before, but it sounds so much like a whole...
It feels like a bit of Thriller, maybe, by Michael Jackson grafted to something else. It's like a composite of the most 80s sounding music you've ever heard.
It's, I suppose, what would be made now by like algorithm and like
AI. If you type into an AI machine, give me an 80s track,
it would come up with
that's what would spit out. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, Dick Randall had a sort of involvement in the music industry, I think, and like owned the rights to a couple of songs. One of them is this song called "Urge to Kill." So that's why the film went from being Attack of the Killer Computer to "Urge to Kill." I think there's actually an earlier version of the song that's almost like a rap song. It's like with slightly different lyrics. I think it may have originally been intended to be used on the soundtrack of Don't Open Till Christmas, but it didn't make the cut. So, but during the filming of this, I think Dick Randall found out that Peter Gardino's son is also called Peter Gardino. Was like an aspiring musician, so I talked him into re-recording the song with slightly different lyrics to match, you know, the plot of the film. So I went from being, you know, I've got the urge to kill, I've got the urge to kill, to she's got the urge to kill, you know, and that's the plot of the film.
Obviously, Dick Randall didn't have rights to a song called Attack of the Killer Computer.
Killer Computer.
Shoehorn this one in. So Peter Gardino is a top music producer, Bono Zorro. Late at night, in the studio, and a singer with a tape, as played by Sally Ann Blam.
Yeah, quite underagey Tracy Lordsy feeling. I don't know that the actual actor is or isn't, but like definitely the vibe was.
I wrote Tracy Lords down as well because she also is a very well endowed. Like
yes,
Lords was.
She's also known as Sally Ann Southend.
Was that right?
Yeah,
great name.
She's fresh from the pages of the Daily Sport.
Oh, of course, yes.
Oh, okay. Yes, I was.
She's also the winner of a wet T-shirt competition.
Yeah, of course, it would be. Yeah, I would award that. I think that makes sense.
Had you been there, yes.
Miss Wet T-shirt UK, I think it was.
Right. So yeah, and she goes back with him to his pad, right? Which turns out to be fully automated by computer. Obviously, a man ahead of his time is Bono Zorro, in all ways. And so we get flashes from they're a bit like not the subliminal shots from The Exorcist, more like the too long to be subliminal shots from the Turkish Exorcist ripoff.
Yeah, it's very much a 1970s prog rock album cover, spray painted, you know, Egyptian princess green thing. Like it totally looks like the front cover of some 1971.
Yeah, written by Michael Moorcock or something.
Yes, yeah.
Or She-Hulk.
Yes.
Yeah.
Bit of that too.
So I guess it's the operating system or something in human form. Is this Julie Edwards, right? You know, who also could have won a wet T-shirt competition quite easily. Painted green.
Yep.
With
a fright wig thing on.
Haircut and strange eye makeup. I mean, towards the end of the, I don't give a fuck about spoilers in this one because it's ridiculous. But towards the end of the film, she does seem to materialize in the real world. But before that, you just get these flashes, and the viewer is, I guess, just supposed to guess, oh, this is the operating system made incarnate, or I don't know. It's very confusing.
Sexy, SEXY, which he does have some kind of, you know, acronym that doesn't quite actually fit those letters. He says at some point.
To be exact, it's Central Environment Control System.
I don't see how that spells out sexy at all.
Well,
but,
to be fair, it kind of does. It's if you go CEC, if you pronounce C differently each time, and then small y, right? Sex.
Okay.
It kind of works.
Okay.
Fair, it's the least stupid thing in this film.
It's funny though, you know, there's this story that I read as a kid in like a 2000 AD, 1982 or 83 annual that has this basic premise of a guy who has this house that's got this futuristic computerized operating system that falls in love with him and then eventually decides to just seal him in and it entombs him, and he basically just starves to death because the house can't let him go because it's been programmed to love him. And it is this kind of thing that our friend and frequent watcher of our show, Gino, at one point was telling me about a Smart House, a 1999 Disney movie, which apparently takes the plot of Urge to Kill and does something else with it. But basically, this idea of the sentient house that falls in love with its owner is obviously some sort of thread that goes through several different films.
I think there was one of those films that ended up being shown as part of the Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense series as well. I seem to remember having some sort of fully automated house and a couple end up imprisoned in it at the end or something like that.
Yeah,
I can't remember which one it was. Yeah, it was something from I taped off late night TV when I was a kid, and something I need to go back to at some point actually is going through the Hammer House of Mystery and Suspense, and figuring out what those things are. And anyway, right. So back to Peter Bonozoro's house. So yeah, he takes this girl back, and calls up another, seems to be his main squeeze, as played by Sarah Hope Walker.
Jane, I think her name.
Yeah, she was also in, I think she was in a Gerald Kikon hardcore film, Jailhouse Sex. All girls get their kit off as well in this film. Fear not, watcher. Yes, yeah, it's a bit confusing, but and some female wrestlers turned up at some point as well.
That's very odd. To make awkward cat noises as they have the cat fight.
Yeah, and they bring a copy of Hellcat Mud Wrestlers over as well and watch that.
Yeah. Which isn't credited in the end credits, the footage from that. So I don't know whether that was authorized or not.
Is that David Sullivan who did that, right?
Yeah, so those are big. Not somebody you want to rip off. But...
No. I'm guessing at some point him and Derek Ford must have crossed paths.
At one of those orgies, I would imagine.
Compared notes. So basically the house is jealous of all of Gordino's groupies he has running around. So
yes, these slatterns, as they're referred to in the YouTube. So whoever uploaded this to YouTube has a great description, which is hang on, never mind, just gone to the wrong place. Anyway, yes, something about it. Yeah, house kills slatterns. Anyway, go ahead, Clive.
Yeah. So they end up dying in various, I suppose, high-tech ways. As we said, Maria Harper ends up blown up by a sunbed with lasers in it. I'm not quite sure what kind of device this is.
Yes. It was a bit like a laser pointer that you would use to annoy a cat, kind of roving around her body until eventually it chose a nipple. And I guess that's where we're missing the scene of her boob exploding.
But obviously it does a hell of a job, because you'd think later on, upon finding the carnage, someone would say more than looks like the contents of an ashtray. And then Miss T-shirt herself, Sally Ann, gets, I guess, dissolved by a shower that's scalded, really hot.
Yeah, scalded into sludge, basically, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's quite.
The went down the plug hole.
Yeah. It's like an acid bath. It's quite conceptually grim. It's quite gross. And then a later death by electric toothbrush as well is quite
that bothered me. I have to say, that was the one where I'm one of those people who regularly has stress nightmares about spitting my teeth out. So that segment worked for me. I was like, no thanks.
Isn't there a death by electric toothbrush in Boogeyman 2 as well? I think I remember correctly. Like a toothbrush goes through someone's head or something.
Yeah. Urge to Kill is unique in that sense.
So there's that, and then there's another weird death where someone dies in the jacuzzi.
Yes.
I assume they're drowned, but then when Sarah Hope Walker goes to have a look, she pulls out a couple of dismembered hands. So
arms. Yeah.
did she melt as well?
Another melted lady. Yes.
I suppose, yeah, if we're being charitable, I suppose we could argue that because Sexy is also capable of possessing both Bono, Zorro, and causes hallucinations. I think I'm not 100%. That could be some of this. Maybe isn't actually happening. It could be in.
Yes, and it's funny. I would say that was my one complaint. One of my complaints about this film would be that I feel like they could have played more with that. I feel like Bono, they could have played into the idea that maybe he had a drug problem. We see him drink a little bit, but I was like, it would have helped if he really wasn't sure. Because he seems hilariously impossibly dense as the film goes on. Every time she tries to explain to him, like, I think the house is murdering people, he's like, you're talking crazy. Like,
what I like about him, he's so horny, but in that kind. He reminded me of a little bit of. Do you remember that episode of The Young Ones where they throw a party? Interesting, I think it is. And Rick invites one of his teachers over, and he's like supposed to be super cool. He's like the guy, he's like, is this a cigarette or is this Floyd? That guy. He reminded me of that. Yeah. But the thing is, as well, he's such a horn dog. Like at some point, like a few people have already died. There's clearly something going wrong, and they're trapped in the house. But then, as soon as the wrestlers turn up, he's like, "Oh, calm down. I'm enjoying myself. Hey, go ahead, ladies." Yeah, he's a great character. Yes, and also we should mention that Sarah Hope Walker's character doesn't seem to know the difference between an axe and a meat cleaver.
No, that's very true.
I made me laugh. And she ends up strangled by wires. He ends up with his head in, I don't know if it's the telly or it's the computer screen. I'm not sure.
One or the other, yeah.
What a fucking mess. But I thoroughly enjoyed myself, I have to say. I don't know. Have I enjoyed this more than you two? Because I quite enjoyed this.
You might have enjoyed it more than me. I enjoyed it, but like there was the somnambulance of it, like the lengthy scenes of just people sitting around in that not terribly well appointed. I mean, I have to say, I think the rooms were nicer in Diversions than this kind of stark
it's a bit pokey, isn't it? It's a bit pokey.
Yeah, and it's just there's just a lot of people sitting around, and then occasional moments of gross violence or nudity, but then
that's what I liked. That's what I liked about it. Though I liked the vibe because it was like quite slow, and the dubbing and the line delivery and everything adds to that.
Yes,
very slow kind of. It would be a good film to watch stoned. Actually, I would imagine. I felt a bit stoned watching it anyway.
Me too. Yeah, without having to take anything. Yeah, lugubrious sleep. Yeah.
Where do you come down on this one, Gav? Is this one you would put on at parties, or?
I don't know. Well, it's interesting. It took me years to find this film, though, because for the longest time, the only people who had copies of it were like people who worked on it. So yeah.
Yeah, when did it? I mean, it's obviously pre the French DVD in about 2000, and pre now being up on YouTube. When did it kind of surface on video, on bootleg?
About 2011, I think. I was sort of involved. I was involved in writing a book called Dead or Alive, feature short films in the 1980s. So obviously, one of the obstacles we had was the fact that couldn't really review this film because no one could see it. But so I was trying to write a sort of sort of plot synopsis and all the stuff I could find about it. And I sort of make sort of the next thing to a proper review, but then that last ditch attempt, I sort of came across that Canadian website that was selling bootleg copies of it. So that's how I saw it. I don't know. I'm still not certain how this film leads. But obviously, a screener copy is gone to miss at some point.
It's also on YouTube. It's on YouTube twice as well. Weirdly enough. There's someone who runs a pretty good channel called White Slaves of Chinatown 3D. Who puts up lots of interesting rare stuff, oddly enough. And then I happened to stumble across it. Someone else had it up, but just under the title My Edited Video. And if you check their channel, they have about 5 other films, none of which are anything like this. In fact, one of them was quite a big film. I can't remember what it was. Like an Eddie Murphy film or something, dubbed in Russian or something. And all the videos are called My Edited Video. So it's one of the oddest YouTube channels I've come across. But anyway, anyone is encouraged to head over to watch it now, just in case it gets yanked from YouTube again for some reason. Although it's worth saying that even though that French DVD was very limited edition, you can still get copies, I noticed, on Amazon France, and it's reasonably priced, 17 euros, and apparently an extra 10 euros to send it here to Japan. So I might have it as a Christmas present, just to see what the sunbed scene looks like.
But I do have to say, Gav, thank you, because the remit, the whole idea of this show we're doing is to try to find things that are that have fallen through the cracks, right, of history, or that films that are hard to come by. And I really think in both cases you've done a great job of digging up things that I would never have stumbled across.
Yes, you are the crack master. Dubious an accolade as that may seem. And in fact, I think we should probably extend an open invitation. If you want to come on again, Gav, if you have something
anytime
you talk about, it
would be our pleasure.
I'll try and find more things from the crack then.
Yes,
just dig around in that crack.
Yeah, you root around in there. Right, okay, I think we are done here, gents. So until next time on FfilmCrackCraic, thanks again, Gavin Whitaker. You shall see all the relevant links. Also, we forgot to mention, Gav also has quite a fun YouTube channel as well.
Oh, yes.
So, yeah, shame you're not wearing the cowboy hat today, Gav. But
oh my God, you want to wear the cowboy hat next time, then.
Other than that, top job.
Thanks so much.
See you, lads. Bye.
Okay.